So what is an imaginary number? And if it's imaginary, then why does it even matter? To answer this, let's first look at the quadratic formula. Minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. What happens when the part under the square root is negative? This is where we use imaginary numbers. Specifically, I is equal to the square root of negative 1. For example, if we had the square root of negative 4, then we could separate it to give the square root of negative 1 and the square root of 4. We could then substitute the square root of negative 1 is equal to I, and the square root of 4 is equal to 2, which gives us 2i. Now let's look at a quadratic equation with imaginary roots to see what it looks like. Here we have the graph x squared plus 4. As you can see, at no point does this cross the x-axis. Also, if we were to solve this equation, we would see that it has roots at plus or minus 2i. Now you might be thinking, so what? All you did was write this in a different way. Now that's kind of true, but writing it this way allows us to represent it on a special type of graph. With the real numbers, we can represent every single value on a one-dimensional line. For a complex number, which are numbers that have a real and an imaginary part, we need 2 dimensions. This is an argand diagram, where the real part is on the x-axis and the imaginary part is on the y-axis. Here, I've just labelled the point 1 plus I to show you it kind of works similarly to a normal graph. And one interesting part about I is that if I multiply any number by the value I, on an argand diagram it will rotate it by 90 degrees. If we take our point of 1 plus I and multiply it by I, we get I minus 1. If we think about imaginary numbers in this way, they're actually pretty useful. For real-world problems, we often use them for things like rotating objects. This is because it allows us to write the horizontal and vertical as a single number. So the name imaginary numbers is kind of misleading. So perhaps a better name would be something like a perpendicular number, as it more accurately describes what it does. So maybe leave a comment saying what name you would give it. And if you could consider liking and subscribing, it would be greatly appreciated. That's all for today, thank you for listening, and goodbye.